Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Austin, Texas. I wanted to see who was responsible for bringing the temperature with them this morning. If you do, there's a cash reward for you as you leave from Dr. Reeves. So see her. She's in the pink suit up here in the front. Whoever brought the traffic with you, there's fines and potential jail time. So just to let you know. And my name is David DeRuin, and I am your Master of Ceremonies for the event. So again, welcome to Austin Community College. Our first presenter, I will read the bio. You'll have to forgive me, I'm a little bit of a walker, so there's two screens that I'm using, but this one's kind of tiny. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking down at. So your first speaker is Dr. Russell Lowry Hart, who serves as the 9th Chancellor of the Austin Community College District. His leadership is centered on the principle of love and a deep commitment to systemic and cultural transformation that advances student success for all students. Since beginning his tenure at Austin Community College, Russell has championed innovative student-focused initiatives, including the launch of a pilot for free tuition, creating opportunities for more Central Texans to attend college without financial barriers. Russell has also expanded the college's basic needs supports, including emergency aid, childcare, food assistance, and more, ensuring students have the resources they need to persist and thrive. At ACC, Russell has guided the development of the college's theory of change, a strategic framework built on 4 pillars: starting strong, enrolling full-time, meeting basic needs, and belonging and connection. These pillars drive ACC's North Star goal of ensuring that 70% of students complete, transfer, or successfully enter the workforce. Russell often says that ACC is the glue of Central Texas, serving as the anchor for the region's educational, workforce, and community needs. He has positioned ACC as a national leader in workforce development, particularly in the semiconductor sector, while also deepening partnerships with schools, employers, and community organizations to strengthen opportunity and economic mobility across the region. Prior to joining ACC, Russell served as president of Amarillo College from 2014 to 2023, and earlier as vice president of academic affairs. During his tenure, Amarillo College was named co-winner of the 2023 Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence. Other distinctions included recognition as a 2021 Aspen Top 5 Institution and Rising Star, and the Leah Meyer Austin Award for Achieving the Dream, the Bellwether Award, and membership in the inaugural Osman Institute Presidential Fellowship class. In addition, no additions. And the addition is he's probably the best hugger at ACC.
We got to cut that down, Aaron, please. I'm really excited for the next 2 days and grateful for your willingness to lean in, not just to the concept, but to each other, that we'll have it learn from the dialogue and the experiences that we're bringing to the conversation as we will the people facilitating the conversation. A little over a year ago, Dr. Reeves and I were having this conversation about our deep concern about the sector of higher education and its inability to plan for what it needs to be when it seems to be so stuck in what it is. And I'm so grateful for the partnership and the leadership and the profound example that Dr. Reeves has exhibited, not just for ACC, but for the country, and helping all of us start to galvanize around what a future thinker looks like. And so when we talked about the transition that she would make, and it's asking a lot for someone to give up a provost position to be the futurist for community colleges writ large. But she and I agree that with her skill set and the network that you all are building, it's more important that we help the sector reimagine itself than just focus myopically on ACC. So what you're experiencing for the next 2 days is her brainchild. It is her leadership, and I want to publicly affirm my deep respect, love, and grateful. I'm so grateful for you making what a futurist looks like real. When we talked about it, you had a vision. I'm like, that sounds great. This is all her, and I just want to take an opportunity for us to thank her for guiding us through the next 2 days. When you are living in moments of deep economic, social, political, racial injustices that are being experienced in the middle of society-changing experiences with technology, AI, there will be a lot of people in higher education that want to shrink from the moment. You're sitting in this room because you understand you are the moment, and we need you to not just lean into the next 2 days, but to lean in how the next 2 days shape the next 2 months, the next 2 years, and the next 2 decades. Thank you for having the courage to ask the hard questions, and thank you having more courage to listen to the harder answers. I'm excited to learn from and with you for the next few days, and am grateful for your willingness to take this journey with us. So congratulations and welcome. Glad to have you.
All right. So next I'm going to introduce Dr. Reeves. So Dr. Monique Reeves, Futurist, Executive Vice Chancellor of the Austin Community College, made her date with destiny when she solidified her love for data, earning her BBA in Computer Information Systems at Middle Tennessee State University in the 1990s. Understanding information forced her to explore her cognitive and emotional intelligence in ways few comprehend. She is an extremely passionate leader who masters patterns, people, and purpose. With more than 20 years of experience in corporate America at companies including Bridgestone, Firestone, and ACS, or Xerox, Dr. Reeves knew she wanted to be a champion for change in higher education. With her Master of Science degree in hand, she earned her doctoral degree from management from the University of Maryland University College with a focus in community college policy and administration. This made her goal more attainable. Her lifelong commitment to innovation, equity, and systemic change is evidenced by her initiatives as a former president at Houston Community College Northeast in Houston, Texas. There, she led the launch of the district's first interdisciplinary center of excellence and the design of the Regional Resilience Operations Center. She also launched ACC Northeast Honor College in the fall of 2021. Prior to serving in Houston, she served as Vice President of Workforce Innovation and the college-wide Dean of the Information Technology Center of Excellence at Cuyahoga Community College, Tri-C in Cleveland, Ohio. Bridging the digital divide through innovative programs like Bridge to Bachelor Pathway and creating partnerships with Apple and IBM to prepare students for blockchain, she is a passionate and insightful change facilitator. Dr. Monique Reeves was selected as an Aspen Presidential Fellow for Community College Excellence and holds numerous professional certifications that include Project Management Professional as well as Certified Scrum Master. Dr. Reeves also serves as an Assistant Professor of Practice in the Executive Doctoral Program in Educational Leadership and Policy at the University of Texas at Austin. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Monique Reeves.
We're going to have to do something about that bio because I'm thinking about my niece and nephew when they said, what was it like growing up in the 1900s? There's a story I want to begin with, not a grand story, not a story about a billion-dollar corporation or a once-in-a-generation innovator, but one that begins quietly, one that you're probably more familiar with, one that starts in a way that you're probably a lot more familiar with. A Monday morning in a conference room, with faculty and administrators around a conference room, probably with no windows, not in a renovated mall, but one that talks about enrollment figures, budget constraints, student success metrics, technology upgrades that didn't quite live up to their promises. And then, almost as an aside, someone says something that lands a little bit heavier than was expected. What if the problem isn't out there anymore, and it lands with silence? Because for decades, we've been trained to believe that the threat is outside, that it's external, that it's the economy. The threat is in policy shifts, funding formulas, technology companies that are well-funded. And yet more and more the data is telling us that, and maybe your instincts are telling you, that it's something even more uncomfortable. What if the greatest threat to our institutions is no longer what's happening to us, but it's what we're unwilling to do to ourselves? I'll tell another story. In the earlier 20th century, there was a company that dominated its field. It was innovative, it was well-respected, and by all measures, quite essential. But over time, something subtle began to happen. Not collapse, because collapse is loud. It was much quieter. The processes at the company began to harden. The systems started to layer on top of systems. The technology that once felt revolutionary became routine, then rigid, then incompatible. The decision-making began to slow, not because the people lacked vision, but because the machinery in which they made decisions and their leadership became so heavy that they started to move slowly. They didn't fail because they didn't know what was coming. They failed because they couldn't let go of what they had already built. This is the paradox of legacy. The very things that can make an institution strong, history, scale, and structure, are the same things that, if left unexamined, can cause them to calcify. And let's be honest, community colleges are not immune to this. In fact, we can be especially vulnerable because we carry a noble mission. We are access. We are opportunity. We are transformation at scale. And when you carry something that important, there's a natural instinct to protect it, to preserve it, to ensure that nothing undermines it. But here's an uncomfortable truth. Preservation, when taken too far, becomes its own form of risk. We're living in a moment that futurists sometimes call a compression point, a moment where decades of change are forced into a handful of years. And the most dangerous point of a compression point is when it hits, you cannot go back. A moment about a compression point is technology is not just advancing. All of these issues are converging at the same time. Russell mentioned it. Student expectations are not just shifting, they're accelerating. The workforce is not just evolving, it's redefining itself in real time. And in the middle of all of this, the community college system is holding together business models that were defined for a different era, an era where time was linear, an era where semesters made sense, an era where students came to us, stayed with us, and left with a credential that had a predictable shelf life. That era is ending, not gradually, not politely, but decisively. Now, here's where that story turns, because this is not a story about decline. It's a story about choice. Creative disruption is not about something that happens to institutions. It's something institutions choose to do or refuse to do. And that distinction matters. Because when disruption is external, we are reactive, we brace, we defend, and we adapt just enough to survive. But when disruption is internal, when it's creative, it becomes something entirely different. It looks like agency. It becomes authorship. It becomes architecture. I'll share a concrete example. Think about your technology ecosystem. Not the vision of it, but the reality of it. One thing I can tell you is, according to studies, the average college or university has 175 software systems. You heard me right, 175. Now, we love to brag that we're above average. We have 212. How many platforms are your students expected to navigate? How many logins? How many systems that don't quite talk to each other? How many workarounds have become normalized? Fragmented technology is not just an inconvenience, it's a signal. It's a signal that we've been layering solutions instead of redesigning systems. We've been solving for the moment, not for the model. And over time, these layers become sediment. And sediment becomes stone. And stone becomes immovable. Now imagine a different approach. Imagine if, instead of asking, how do we integrate this new tool into what we already have? What if we ask, if we're building this institution from scratch today, what would we never build in the first place? That, my friend, is a dangerous question. It's dangerous because it doesn't just invite innovation, it demands elimination. And this is where our story must widen, because if we're going to talk about creative disruption in 2026 and beyond, we can not just talk about what we remove. We must talk about what we replace it with. And here's where two ideas that are still emerging and still imperfect begin to matter deeply: digital twins and living intelligence. I'll start with a story. A student at ACC that we call Ashley, my ACC friends are quite familiar with Ashley. And you have an Ashley at your institution. She's not just enrolled in the traditional sense. Alongside her exists something else, a dynamic, evolving model of her learning journey. A system that understands not just her grades, but her pace, her patterns, her friction points, her aspirations. It sees where she hesitates, where she excels, and where she disengages. It doesn't replace her, it reflects her. This, my friends, is her digital twin. Now, you may hear the term digital twin in manufacturing or engineering. A digital twin is a virtual replica of the physical system used to simulate, predict, and optimize outcomes. But in higher education, a digital twin is something more profound. It's a living model of a student's educational journey. Not static data, not a transcript frozen in time, but a continuously evolving representation of Ashley's learning, her behavior, her progress, and more importantly, her potential. And here's why that matters. Because right now, most of our systems, those 176 systems, are reactive. A student fails a course, we respond. A student drops out, we analyze. A student struggles, we intervene, but often too late, because we're responding to autopsy data. But a digital twin shifts the timeline. It allows us to see patterns before they become problems, to simulate pathways before students commit to them, to design interventions not based on averages, but on individuals and real-time data. Now extend that beyond one student, beyond Ashley. Imagine a digital twin of your institution, a dynamic model of your enrollment flows, your course bottlenecks, your financial pressures, your student behaviors. A system where you could test decisions before you implement them. What happens if we restructure this program? What happens if we shift this modality? What happens if we remove this requirement? Instead of guessing, you simulate. Instead of reacting, you anticipate. Now, I want to be clear about something. Digital twins are not about more data. We're flooding in data. This is about coherence, about turning fragmented systems into integrated intelligence, from moving from hindsight to foresight. And yet this is important. Digital twins alone are not enough. Digital twins provide us with the opportunity to transform the student experience. The future is not static, it's adaptive. Because if we're going to talk about creative disruption in this next era, we must expand how we understand intelligence itself. Not just artificial intelligence, not just human intelligence, but something broader, something more integrated, something that's already beginning to shape entire industries, especially the life sciences. Living intelligence in this context is the convergence of AI systems that learn continuously, sensor networks that capture real-time biological data, personalized medicine tailored to individual genetic and environmental conditions, and advanced materials that interact dynamically with living systems. It's not a single breakthrough, it's an ecosystem. I want you to pause for a moment and consider what this means for education. Just this week, within the last 7 days, in Austin, UT Austin received a $750 million investment from the Michael Dell Foundation to build a living intelligence medical center. This is real, just here in the city. We are not just preparing nurses, technicians, or lab assistants for static roles anymore. We're preparing them for environments that are data-rich, continuously evolving, interdisciplinary, and deeply personalized, where a technician may need to understand not just equipment, but data interpretation, where a clinician may collaborate not just with other humans, but with adaptive AI systems, where learning cannot end at graduation because the field itself will not stand still. And here's where community colleges have a profound opportunity, not to follow, but to lead, because you're already closest to the students who will enter these roles. You're already the bridge between education and workforce. You're already the institutions most capable of moving with speed and relevance, if you choose to. Dr. Linnea Fletcher said it best last night. But leadership in this space will require rethinking pathways entirely. Dual credit can no longer be just about acceleration. It must become an on-ramp onto emerging fields. Imagine high school students not just earning college credits, but engaging with early-stage bioscience concepts, data literacy, and health technologies. Imagine dual credit pathways that are not generic, but intentionally aligned with future-facing industries. Transfer pathways must evolve as well, not just as agreements between institutions, but as fluid ecosystems where learning is stackable, adaptable, and responsive to industry shifts. And technician pathways, often underestimated, must be elevated. Because in a world of living intelligence, the demand for highly skilled technicians who can operate, interpret, and adapt within complex systems will only grow. These are not secondary roles, they're essential roles. In a modern medical environment, when a patient walks into a clinic, in a living intelligence clinic, the care they receive is no longer defined by a single physician, a single diagnosis, or even a single moment in time. Sensors, embedded, wearable, ambient, are continuously capturing biological signals. When we talk about wearable devices, we're no longer talking about Apple Watches. Artificial intelligence is not just analyzing symptoms after the fact. It's predicting risk before they emerge. Personalized medicine is tailoring treatments not just to populations, but to the individual's genetic, behavioral, and environmental profile. And emerging materials, which we now refer to as metamaterials, are enabling entirely new forms of diagnostics, imaging, and therapeutic delivery that we are only beginning to understand. This is not science fiction. It's the early architecture of a new bioscience ecosystem. This is living intelligence. It's not episodic care, it's not reactive care, it's living, breathing, adaptive care. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what does it mean to educate for a world like this? Our current models are not designed for it. We're still largely preparing students for environments that are structured, predictable, and role-defined. So, here's the tension. To build these pathways, to support these futures, we must once again confront creative disruption. We cannot simply layer these new models on old structures. We cannot prepare students for living intelligent environments with fragmented systems and outdated pathways. We must integrate, simplify, and reimagine. What we know is that in older organizations, if left untouched, do not simply remain stable. They calcify. They become excellent at maintaining what exists and increasingly incapable of imagining what does not. The problem is, calcification is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in slower decisions, in safer ideas, in innovation that feels more like iteration, in meetings where everyone agrees and nothing really changes. So the question is not whether disruption will happen, it will. The question is, who will be holding the pen when it does? I'll return to the room I mentioned at the beginning, the one with the coffee cups and the humming projector. Imagine that same room, but with a different type of conversation. Someone who says, what if we stop protecting everything? Another person who says, what if we designed a business model around how students actually live today? And not how they used to. Another person who says, what if we measured success not by how many systems we sustain, but how many barriers we eliminate? And then this is the crucial moment. Someone says the thing that changes everything. What are we willing to let die? Because that's the gateway. Not innovation for its own sake, but intentional endings. Revamping our business models is not about tweaking tuition structures or adding new programs at the margins. It's about rethinking our value. What do students really need from us now? Flexibility, yes, but more than that, coherence. Speed, yes, but more than that, relevance. Credentials, yes, but more than that, continuous pathways. Our current models often assume a beginning, middle, and an end. But the future of education is not episodic. It's continuous, which means our institutions cannot just be places that students pass through. We must become systems that they return to again and again throughout their lives. That requires a different architecture. And digital twins and living intelligence are not luxuries in that future. They're infrastructure. There's a kind of quiet courage in this work because it does not always look like progress at first. It looks like subtraction. It looks like saying no. Sometimes it looks like closing something that's been open for years. And in those moments, it can feel like loss. But it's not loss. It's space. And space is where the new things live. I'll share another story. A forest after a fire. At first glance, this might look like devastation. Blackened trees, ash-covered ground, and silence. But beneath the surface, something remarkable is actually happening. There are certain seeds that could not open under normal conditions. These seeds require fire to activate. Heat becomes the catalyst for their growth. What looked like destruction becomes the very condition for renewal. Creative disruption is our fire. Not reckless, not uncontrolled, but intentional, purposeful, and necessary. We are not victims of the future of education. We're not victims at all. We are the bystanders watching change happen from the set. We are not bystanders watching change happen from the sidelines. We are not caretakers of a system that must remain exactly as it is to be valuable, because the future is not something that we inherit. It is something that we, all of us, design. We are co-creators. And design at its core is an act of courage. And I don't know about you, but all the ACC people, that is one of our values. And now we arrive at a critical inflection point in our conversation. There's another dimension that we cannot afford to ignore, and that is inclusion. Let me tell you something that's often misunderstood about innovation. We tend to think of innovation and brilliance as synonymous. Brilliance being a lone product, a singular vision, the lone innovator, the cowboy rock star. But the data and the lived experiences of organizations that have strong innovation tells a different story. Innovation is not the strongest in homogeneous organizations. It's the strongest where people think differently and are able to work through that difference productively. Inclusive innovation is not a moral add-on. It's a strategic imperative. Teams that are not homogeneous, teams that bring together different backgrounds, perspectives, disciplines, and lived experiences are more likely to challenge assumptions, identify blind spots, design for a broader range of users, and ultimately create more effective solutions. And in the context of community colleges, this is not abstract. You already serve some of the most diverse student populations in higher ed. The question is not whether diversity exists, the question is whether it's activated. Are those diverse perspectives shaping how programs are designed? Do your leadership teams reflect your student populations? Do you actively welcome neurodiversity in employee recruiting and training? Are students part of your innovation process? Are industry partners reflecting the communities we serve? Are we building systems that work for the margins or only for the middle? Here's the truth. If we design the future of education without inclusion, we will simply replicate the limitations of the past. But if we center inclusion, if we treat it as a driver of innovation rather than a checkbox, we unlock something much more powerful. We build systems that aren't just efficient, but equitable, not just scalable, but responsive. And this matters even more in a world shaped by living intelligence. Because personalized medicine, adaptive systems, and AI-driven environments are only as good as the perspectives that shape them and the data that's included in building them. If those systems are built without diversity, they will fail the very populations that we're trying to serve. So inclusive innovation is not separate from creative disruption. It's essential to it. Because when we ask, what are we willing to let die, we must also ask, who has been left out of what we've been building so far? And what would we design differently if we truly included them? Let me bring you back once more to that room, the one with the coffee cups, the humming projector, and the familiar agenda. Now imagine that same room, but with new voices at the table. Students, neurodiverse employees, brilliant employees across the organization who have typically not had a seat at the table for a multitude of reasons. Industry partners from emerging fields, faculty from different disciplines, technologists, community leaders, and the conversation shifts from preservation to possibility. Someone says, what if our bioscience programs were designed for where medicine is going, not where it's been? Another person asks, what if our dual credit pathways become the front door to future industries? Another person asks, what if we built technician pathways that were seen as critical, not secondary? And then again, the question, what are we willing to let die? Because that is still the gateway. Not innovation for its own sake, but intentional endings that make space for inclusive, adaptive, forward-looking systems. We are not victims, again, for the future of education. We're not bystanders. We're not caretakers of a fixed model. We are the architects, and architects, by definition, make decisions about what stays, about what evolves, and about what must come down so that something better can rise in its place. So I'll leave you with this. What are you protecting that's no longer preparing students for the world that they're entering? What would your institution look like if it was designed for living intelligence? How might inclusive innovation reshape the way you build programs, pathways, and partnerships? And perhaps most importantly, what are you willing to let go of so that something more relevant, more responsive, and more equitable can take its place? Because the future is not something that we inherit. It's something that we design. And that design, real design, takes courage. Thank you.
What if your community college could predict student needs before they arise? What if we could co-create the workforce of tomorrow, starting today? Welcome to ACC's Office for the Future, our innovation engine designed to support the college's North Star. We're not just building programs, we're building the future through initiatives such as the digital twin. Imagine a living, data-driven replica of our operations that helps us make smarter, faster decisions for student success. The Alliance of Future Makers, a national network cultivating change agents who are transforming education from the inside out. The Summit of Future Makers, a national convening of future-focused presidents, industries, and scholar practitioners who are serious about collaborating to design a resilient college for the future. The Living Intelligent Nexus, where AI, sensors, and biotechnology converge to prepare students for careers that don't even exist yet. And an Innovation Academy where student entrepreneurs turn ideas into impact. This is bigger than ACC. This is about transforming our region's economic future together. Want to be a part of building tomorrow? Let's talk.
Hello, I'm Dr. Andrea Kehoe, Head of Product at Austin Community College, and I'm here to talk about what happens when the most forward-thinking minds in higher education stop working in silos and start working together. We are living through a seismic shift. Learner expectations are changing, labor markets are volatile, technology is accelerating faster than any single institution can track, and the students who need futures most, first-generation learners, working adults, underrepresented communities, are attending broad access colleges that are often the last to receive innovation resources. That's the problem. Here's the solution. The Alliance of Future Makers is a national innovation sandbox and collective impact network anchored at Austin Community College. We bring together three powerful forces: our fellows, scholar practitioners who are embedded change agents inside their institutions, college presidents and CEOs who have the authority to drive transformation from the top, and industry partners who know what the workforce of tomorrow actually needs. Together, we design, test, and scale future-ready educational and workforce models. We co-create workforce innovation labs with employers. We pilot emerging technologies, including AI, responsibly and collaboratively, sharing risk and sharing results. We build the validation frameworks, agile methodologies, and implementation toolkits that help every institution move faster and smarter. Because the future of higher education can't be built by one college, it has to be built by a network that moves as one. The Alliance of Future Makers. This is capacity building for innovation at a national scale. The sandbox is open. The work is already underway, and we love for you to be a part of it. So let's talk.
The future isn't waiting for permission. It's being built right now by students. Hello, my name is Harshal Shah. I am part of the Office for the Future. We are living in the most transformative era in human history. Artificial intelligence is defining how we work, learn, create, and solve problems. But technology alone doesn't change the world. People do. At the Innovation Academy, we believe the future belongs to students who combine AI with ambition. Students who take an idea, raw, impactful, full of possibilities, and turn it into real impact, into startups, into solutions, into movements. We give students the tools, the mentorship, the ecosystem, and the confidence to think like entrepreneurs, to experiment, to build, to fail intelligently, and to try again, faster, smarter, powered by AI. Because the next big breakthrough won't come from waiting for an opportunity. It'll come from creating it. The future is not something we predict. It's something we design. And our students are already building it. Want to learn more? Let's talk.
Hello, I'm Dr. Linnea Fletcher, Biotechnology Department Chair at Austin Community College, and Executive Director of the Innovate Bio National Biotechnology Education Center. At ACC, we aren't just observing the future of science, we are building the engine that drives it. In collaboration with the Office of the Future, we are proud to introduce the Living Intelligent Nexus. Think of the Nexus as a dynamic ecosystem where human insight and emerging technologies converge. It is our North Star guiding how we approach biotech education, workforce innovation, and community impact. The Nexus is more than a facility. It's a catalyst. It's a space where students, faculty, and industry futurists collaborate on real-world challenges. We've moved beyond traditional models by actively synthesizing the evolving needs of our local industry. With the aspirations of our students, we create a feedback loop of innovation. Through immersive, project-based education, we aren't just training students for the jobs that exist today, but we are transforming them into the visionary employees industry will need tomorrow. At Austin Community College, we believe the future isn't something that happens to us. It is something we design. The Living Intelligence Nexus empowers our community to think boldly and lead confidently. Join us as we build the future together.